So let me say the two things before I actually get into the subject. The first thing is that Orthodox and technology sometimes seem not to work so well together. On the other hand, Fili is that organization which makes people work together in a good and proper and loving manner. And I'm here to share a few thoughts with you and to say a few words about human trafficking, modern slavery, which is perhaps one of the horrors of our day and time. Fili, though, in an indirect manner, and the ministry of Saints Peter and Paul and the Philoptochos societies, as well as individuals, work against these problems and these challenges. And if we all work together, we might be able to do something good. The average person in our communities and in the greater world, the average person does not understand what human trafficking is really about and modern slavery. We think it's about the sex trade. We don't look at the nail shop. We don't look at the people working in the buildings and construction and painting. We don't look at the laborers. We don't look at the beggars on the street corners. And as you know, I chair the Patriarchal committee that's fighting against human trafficking. And I'm going to tell you not so much what the problem is or how we might solve it, but to offer some thoughts and some suggestions so you can have a better idea. The first thing is that there are many misconceptions about human trafficking. And the first one is that it's about the other. It's not about us. For some reason, we don't think that we have those issues, those challenges, those problems in our families and in our homes. Your daughter may be trafficked and may be forced in type of slavery, and you don't know anything about it because you don't know the signs. You don't know enough about her life or your son's life and what young people are doing today. We need to educate people. We need to educate parents, teachers, so that we all work together to find some solutions. What are we doing as a church? Well, the first thing is some of you may have seen the booklet that we published, Protecting the Vulnerable. I'm sorry we don't have more copies. We printed 2,000 and they were gone almost overnight. And the book is now being translated into Greek. We should have the Greek version in just a while. And why a Greek version? Because it was requested of us. And it is a means to inform people again about the horrors of trafficking and modern slavery. The church also is sponsoring seminars in local parishes. For those who live in Southern California, you may have come to Pasadena or have heard what happened in Pasadena and how we teamed up with other institutions and other churches, other communities. It's not about them, it's not about us, it's about all of us together. The church also sponsors international seminars and conferences. I'm sorry that my dear friend Lula Aniston isn't with us this evening or this morning for you, because Lula always came along to the conferences. She came to the Patriarchate, she came to Buenos Aires, and to wherever we might gather. And she tried as best as the rest of us should do to work against these things. What can you do as individuals? What can a church do? What can an institution do? Well, the first thing is to take hold of the situation and put people into office who are going to work against these things. Look at the budget of your city, of your county, of your state, of the school systems. See how much funding is being used to fight human trafficking and modern slavery. Find individuals who are going to put into the reality of life laws and restrictions that will force people out of this trade. Just like we have laws about narcotics, drugs, I might say somewhat about guns and weapons. As we have these laws, we need to do other things to close down the houses, the shops, whatever, that are using human beings as a mere commodity in life. You know, it's very difficult, although we might know that there is a house being used for the sex trade or for something else, to close them down with great evidence. But if you find out that they have some mistake in their zoning policy or they've transgressed some other law, we can use these means to shut them down and maybe just push them away. But if you push people enough, maybe they're going to close down. What can you do in your local parish and in your local community is host seminars. Bring in the professionals to speak. Don't think that you as an individual are going to save anyone. First of all, Jesus Christ came to save the world. We as people just try to help. But work with the professionals and the organizations, the institutions that know how to handle the problem. The next thing that you can do, don't look down on the young people, the women, or those who cross the border and are being trafficked and used as modern slaves. Do not look down on them as if they are a lower piece of life. We don't know why these people have either been forced or have taken on these identities and these challenges. The only thing that we know as human beings and as Christians, as it were, called to help them, to let them see a better life and to see a better world. The last thing that I'm going to tell you is we're going to host another international conference. Maybe somebody would like to represent the ministry or Fili to come see what we're doing. Those of you who know me know I'm a little bit creative and I like to think outside the box. We published our book on human trafficking and modern slavery. Our next one will be a resource book for cancer victims. Having a psychologist, a nutritionist, a doctor, a theologian, prayers, all sorts of things that come from our tradition to help the people who are survivors. We not only want to look at the victim of cancer, of slavery, of trafficking, we also need to look at the survivor to help that person see a better day, a more beautiful experience, and to open the arms of the church to help these people. You should know if we do not act as a church, we are not the church. Number two, if we don't do something as Christians, then we've denied Christ, who called us to serve those in need, the poor, the naked, those in prison, and on down the line. If we don't do something, we failed our calling as human beings. I will throw this last measure out because I don't know it's possible. I'm coming to the Bay Area. I'm going to Florida, and I'm going to try to come to the Bay Area. Father Chris, are you still online? Are you participating with us? I see you there. And Father Christopher is my classmate.
Yes, Your Eminence, I'm here.
Same class at the theological school. If we could organize maybe an evening or a late afternoon, I would be happy to come and speak, to share some thoughts, to tell you what's happening in my life, but also tell you what we must do. And you cannot wait until tomorrow. You have to act now. Tomorrow may never come. I'll stop there because I've also been watching the clock. So I don't want to cheat anyone else. I will try to stay on as long as I can if you have questions for me. Thank you for attending. Thank you for hosting. Thank you for giving of your time, your talents, and your treasures. And thank you for giving of your love for this noble cause.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your speech. And I'm sure
there are a few questions. I don't know if Nicole is monitoring, but Nicole, would you like to see if there are questions for His Eminence?
Yes, at this time, there are no questions in the chat box.
Well, I wanted to find out in broad terms, what does human trafficking mean? Because I don't think we got the definition. So is human trafficking just getting kids to perform? Yeah. What can you give us in broad terms what human trafficking means?
It's moving, transporting, using, abusing human beings for the wrong purposes. I'm trying to put it in a very colloquial way, and it's not only children. It's also the people who work in buildings and paint them. It's the people who come across the border and maybe wash the cars and mow the lawns. It's the young people, the young girl to make her boyfriend happy who sleeps with someone else. It's the young people who are selling drugs and on down the line.
In your opinion, is there some characteristics of a trafficker? Is there something that people should watch for? Like, how do we know when we meet a person who is doing this kind of trade?
You probably will never come into contact with the person who is doing the trafficking. You will come into contact with the people who are trafficked. If your children all of a sudden have a new telephone, new friends, more spending money, perhaps new jewelry and other things, that person is probably being trafficked or used in some form of slavery. And that could be in your own home. Doesn't mean the person ever left the home. I'm going to tell you a very quick story.
Mm-hmm.
There was a young woman who started chatting online, in these chat rooms. And she was in touch with a young man, and over the months they became friends. And finally he said to her one day, "Hey, why don't you show me your picture? I'd like to see what you look like in all these things." So she sent some photos, and he, through the computer and various devices and means, found out where she lived. She received a message, "Hey, come outside so I can meet you." And when she went outside, there was an older gentleman sitting there who lifted up a shotgun and said, "Either get in the car or I'm going in to kill your mother." That's a true story. She was fortunate enough to escape at one point. Go see the movie Eastern Promises if you want. And there's so many other movies. See the movie Taken. Do all sorts of other things. Okay? If you see people who are begging with cups, they're not the ones who get the money. It's the person who's in charge. You're not going to come into contact with the boss, the mafia man, or something like that.
Okay.
We do have a few more questions in the chat box, so thank you everyone for the questions. Your Eminence, I'm going to start with two questions from Despina. Her first question is human trafficking a global problem or is it localized? And do you consider trafficking and grooming the same thing? And if not, how is it different?
Okay. First of all, Despina is participating from down under. I know her from Hong Kong. And her brother's a priest. So let me tell you quickly, grooming and trafficking are not the same thing. One can be groomed to be used in a specific way, but people can be trafficked for their organs, for example. A person may be transported and that individual's kidney is taken out. Or we can keep on going down the line. There are even people, bones are taken and used. So these people are not groomed for those positions, but a young woman might be groomed and led into prostitution. And psychologically, at some point, she may not be able to break the connection with the man or the woman who's controlling her. And it's not only men who control the women who are in prostitution. There are also women, there are groups, and on down the line. And the other question, it is a global phenomenon that's happening. It's very sad. And the profits are increasing because arms trafficking and these other things are becoming too dangerous. It's very easy to dispose of a human being. You just kill the individual and throw him or her in the lake or bury them. No evidence.
And Nicole, is there another question or?
Yes, and then we have two more. I know this was alluded to, but maybe if you can speak a little bit more from Julia. We have, when we see women with children standing at a store parking lot begging for money, can this be a form of can this be a human trafficking victim?
It could, absolutely. I volunteered in a shelter for homeless youth when I lived in Chicago. One of the two rules that were given to me as a person, there was a volunteer. One, you never give cash, never give money to anyone. You help a program, an institution. You help a facility. The people who you're going to give cash to are usually not the ones that get that type of money. They're the ones whose money's taken away, and they may be physically abused if they don't bring in a lot of money. So of course, those people who are collecting monies on the street corners and in the parking lots are the individuals who may have been trafficked. Doesn't mean they have been. And trafficking doesn't mean taking you across the border. It could be taking you from one town to another, one state to another. And there are children who are born into a type of slavery. Remember, slavery is not new. Go back to the book of Genesis, okay? And remember what happened there with Moses. If you get to see our book on human trafficking, the outside cover shows an icon and it's first Christ on the top, liberating and freeing humanity from sin, and then Moses leading the Israelites out of slavery into the promised land. And I saw that Desmond put and said, Kung Hei Fat Choi. That's right. I served the liturgy this morning and wore Chinese vestments.
And then our last question is from Rosa. How, as a parish, can we make the youth aware of, who are trusted adults they can go to when there's a problem?
Well, the people they should trust are first parents, but it doesn't always work that way. There's a book called You Like Me, My Name On. It's about a young woman who was sold into prostitution by her mother. And the mother only had one regret. She got $14 for her